Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into two absolutely critical years that really set the world on a collision course with war. We're talking 1935 and 1936, a time of audacious gambles, broken promises, and, frankly, some fatal indecision.
So how does a whole world just stumble into war? Well, the thing is, it almost never happens overnight. It's usually a series of calculated risks and, more importantly, failed responses. It's kind of like watching dominoes fall, one by one. And back in the mid-1930s, the first of those dominoes was about to be pushed by one man in Germany.
So it all kicks off with one nation and one leader deciding, you know what, the old rules don't apply to us anymore. In 1935, Adolf Hitler started to systematically tear up the rule book that was written after World War I. And the speed here is just breathtaking. In just 6 months, Hitler pulls off a huge propaganda win in the Saarland, and then he just openly defies the Treaty of Versailles, not once, but 3 times. He announces a new air force, he brings back the draft to build a massive army, and he even launches a new U-boat. Each move was a test, a dare to the rest of the world to see what they would do. This aggression just throws European leaders into a total spin. In Britain and France, politicians are completely split. What do? Do you try to manage Hitler's ambitions peacefully, through diplomacy and compromise? Or is this a guy who only understands force, meaning you have to stand up to him with military strength? That debate would basically define the rest of the decade.
Now, you'd think, faced with this kind of open defiance, everyone would get on the same page, right? Well, as we're about to see, that united front was destined to crack almost as soon as it was formed.
So in April of 1935, the leaders of Britain, France, and Italy get together in the resort town of Streza. They form what everyone starts calling the Streza Front, and on paper, this looked like the answer, a powerful, unified bloc standing against Hitler, all pledging to oppose any more of his treaty violations. For a hot second, it looked like they had a solution. But this is where it all falls apart, and this slide shows it perfectly. That promise of unity? Yeah, it lasted all of about 2 months, because Britain, without even telling its new partners, went off and signed its own deal with Germany. They were worried about a naval race they couldn't win, so they thought this was a practical move. But in doing so, they basically torpedoed the entire alliance.
And the fallout? Oh, it was immediate and it was ugly. France felt completely stabbed in the back. And Italy's fascist leader, Benito Mussolini, he took away a really, really dangerous lesson from all this. He decided these guys were all talk and no action. So, with the so-called United Front in Europe in complete disarray, the crisis starts to spread. It's like a virus. The next domino isn't going to fall in Europe. Nope, it's going to fall in Africa. Seeing how weak the response to Hitler was, Mussolini saw his chance. He's dreaming of building a new Roman Empire, and he gambles that the world might complain, but in the end, they wouldn't do a thing to actually stop him. So he orders the invasion of Ethiopia.
And, to be fair, the League of Nations, kind of like the pre-UN, did act. They slapped economic sanctions on Italy. But these sanctions were, to put it mildly, full of holes. You had major powers like the US and Germany who weren't even members, so they didn't have to follow them. And crucially, the sanctions didn't include oil, the one thing a modern army absolutely needs. The sanctions were basically useless.
After his country was conquered, using modern weapons, including poison gas, Emperor Haile Selassie went to the League of Nations in Geneva himself, and he delivered this absolutely haunting warning to the whole world, a perfect epitaph for the idea of collective security.
This total breakdown of international order paves the way for the next crisis, and this one is basically a dress rehearsal, a terrifying preview for the Second World War.
In July 1936, Spain just explodes. A military coup, led by nationalist officers like General Francisco Franco, tries to overthrow the elected government. It doesn't quite work, and the country spirals into a horrific civil war. Now, officially, other countries pledged not to intervene, but yeah, that promise didn't last long.
This table just lays it all out so clearly. The battle lines for World War II are literally being drawn right here, in Spain. The Soviet Union sends aid to the Republican government, and who backs the rebels? You guessed it, Fascist Italy sends thousands of troops, and Nazi Germany sends its shiny new air force. Spain became their training ground.
And all this cooperation in Spain, it's not just a one-off thing. It's actually laying the foundation for the final domino of this period, the creation of a formal and very, very dangerous new alliance.
But hang on, in the middle of all this chaos, the world's eyes turn to Berlin for the 1936 Summer Olympics, and the Nazi regime puts on an incredible show. It is a masterclass in propaganda.
They took down anti-Semitic signs, and they presented this image of a modern, peaceful, and totally unified Germany. And a lot of foreign visitors bought it.
But behind the peaceful facade, that very same month, Hitler issued a top-secret order. It was called the 4-Year Plan, and its goal was simple: get Germany's entire economy and military ready for a massive war to conquer living space in Eastern Europe. He wasn't hoping for peace. He was actively planning for war.
So that teamwork in Spain, that shared aggressive ideology, it all leads to this moment. On November 1st, 1936, Mussolini gets up and announces a Rome-Berlin axis. It's official. The alliance between Fascist Italy and Nazi Germany is solidified. They're team now.
So you might be asking yourself, where's the United States in all this? Well, this number really says it all. A 1936 poll showed that a whopping 95% of Americans wanted absolutely nothing to do with any future foreign war. The mood was total isolationism. America was determined to sit this one out.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the road to World War II wasn't just one big mistake. It was a clear chain reaction. From Germany's rearmament to Ethiopia to Spain, every act of aggression that went unchallenged just emboldened the next, even bigger act of aggression, all while the world's democracies just couldn't get their act together.
And all of this leaves us with a final, pretty sobering question to wrap up this explainer. When you look at the Axis forming, the League of Nations failing, and the Allies basically paralyzed by indecision, had the window for preventing a global war already slammed shut by the end of 1936? It's a question historians are still arguing about today.